how does this work that you've done fit into the Stop the Gap exhibition?
Well, you know, it's sort of, the Stop the Gap exhibition is sort of loosely based on that concept of closing the gap is the key words. And it, you know, for me, Stranded, the piece that I did for them, it's had a sort of very interesting genesis. Basically, I was asked to make a sort of a video installation piece, and they didn't ask me what they wanted. They just gave me a shitload of money to do whatever I wanted. And it was very interesting. It was really interesting in that sense because, you know, I come from such a linear background of storytelling. A goes to B and B goes to C and 1 goes to 2 and 2 goes to 3. You know, that kind of concept of storytelling, you know, through cinema. And then basically I've got this blank page. I've got money in a blank page and I don't actually have to come up with a concept that means anything. You know, it means a lot to me, but it was a really interesting breath of fresh air, creative wise, you know, being creative in that sense. So, you know what, I don't actually know how it fits into Stop the Gap, but I bloody enjoyed it. You know, I've been writing a script now for, you know, straight up, the film that I'm writing at the moment is the film that I was writing before I wrote Sandstorm Alive. So it's a bit long in the tooth, and, you know, it's the kind of script that sometimes I feel like I just want to take it out the back and put a bullet through it, because, you know, and it's quite painful, and, you know, it's going to be a fantastic film when I finish it, but it's been incredibly painful. To be able to do stuff like this here, that is a sort of non-narrative, it's more about images and emotion, not about, and less about sort of that classic kind of storytelling. And I kind of really loved it, and it's something that I actually want to do a lot more of, and it's so quick and painless. You know, it takes you a day to kind of come up with a concept, and, you know, you think about it for a bit longer than that, but you know, it takes a week to make it, and then, you know, it's on the archive. So
it takes your mind away from the filmmaking process and allows you to be creative in a different way that you had not explored before.
Yeah, you know, I love that. You know, you know, with a cinema script, you know, you very defined protagonist, antagonist, or you can play with those concepts, but you've got to kind of come out with a completion of who is bad, who is good, and the story has to be very sort of classic and clear for an audience. You know, these are kind of almost like financial restraints in cinema, because you need that to basically get bums on seats in cinemas. And with this here, it's free. You know, I don't have to sell anything to anybody. I don't have to. I don't have to explain anything to anybody.
I mean, what techniques did you use in this installation?
Well, it's in 3D. You know, sort of technically wise. I let go of that sort of whole moral concept of storytelling, and just open my mind to the idea of images to create emotions, rather than, you know, and just purely that, and sounds that create emotions. Shot it in 3D using, you know, Panavision's Genesis system and green screens, and you know, we used Lee Mack gave us the new little duckbill 3D camera, the smaller Panasonic one that I used on location in the desert, which worked absolutely beautiful. So, you know, they were kind of, you know, that was the sort of technical side. It was kind of nice too to do something in 3D that was small. You know, you hear all these incredible, you know, nightmarish stories about 3D, but this was actually really painless. You know, we set out to do, you know, 8 shots in one day, and we did like 20. It was, you know, quite painless.
You know what the plan is for this exhibition? Is it going to travel around the country?
Yeah. It's, you know, there's lots of people interested in the exhibition as a whole. There's lots of people, I won't tell you who they are, but there's lots of people interested in buying the Stranded, the 3D piece that I did, for you know, private collectors as well as art galleries. So that's really interesting. You know, there is it is cinema, but it's called, you know, visual art. And it was interesting. I never set out to make any money out of it, but actually it looks like it's going to make money. It's bizarre.
Now, for people who may not have the chance to come here to Adelaide and see it, or maybe go to wherever it's being exhibited, what kind of footage did you shoot, and what kind of emotions were you trying to create with this work?
Well, basically the premises of it is that I crucify myself on a cross in 3D and float above a sort of visceral desert landscape at dusk. And I use the emotion of sort of a soundtrack created that Liam Egan helped me create. He's an incredible sound designer. There's sort of wind and birds and storms, and the sort of the whispering of the wind of that sort of skanky reggae from Samson and Delilah and things like that there. It's interesting. I like the idea that people can come out with their own perception of what the hell this thing's about, and I don't think, and no one's wrong in a sense. They can go, well, Warwick's a dickhead, this is like crap, or this is wonderful and it changed his fucking life. I don't know. I kind of like the idea that it's, if you go in there with a bad temper, you're going to have a different point of view of what it's about than if you go in there and I kind of like that idea.
Did you enjoy working with the 3D cameras and shooting 3D?
Yeah, absolutely. We had Panavision really helped us out and basically gave us the camera for Nix, and I was incredibly scared of it because you hear those nightmare stories, and it was incredibly painless. It was really quick. It was it's a beautiful image. There's a lot of creativity involved. There's a lot of rules with it, which I found interesting. Oh no, you can't let the subject break frame and all this kind of stuff. And it was like, well, that's a rule we should start breaking and we should start having fun with it. So it actually opened up a whole lot of visual storytelling devices, playing with it, because things like just playing, using like the 3D as a focus pull and pulling it in and out and throwing it all over the place and trying to have fun with the concept and trying to play with the rules and break them and stick inside the rules and stuff. So it was quite enjoyable. It was quite enjoyable because what we were doing had a lot of freedom. If you had dialogue and you had structure and you had wide shots and close-ups and all that kind of stuff, I guess it would be a much harder task. But because we didn't have, because I had a set shot list, but I didn't really care about that shot list. I found something better, I would shoot it and use it. So it was kind of, we were much more relaxed with the system. Though it does take an awful amount of, the technical side of changing lens and that sort of stuff takes an awful amount of time. They were saying, I asked them, so if we went in for a closer shot and changed lenses, how long would they take? And they were saying, well, from 30 minutes to 2 hours. And I was like, well, why don't we just put the camera on a crane and then just wheel it in and wheel it out and do our mid shots and close-ups on the same lens rather than changing lenses all the bloody time. And then just play with the stop to change the depth of field to make it feel like it's a longer lens. Give it that sort of compression you get from longer lenses. And people were like, yeah, and they made it a lot quicker and a lot more free.
And it comes at an interesting time when the question for many people is, will 3D exist beyond the spectacle, the visual effects spectacle of something like Avatar? So, yeah. Well, I guess my question for you is, do you see yourself working with the kind of stories that you want to tell? 3D is also a tool that can help you bring those stories to life?
Yeah, absolutely. It's another creative tool as far as I'm concerned. The only people who do use it basically, seriously is Hollywood, and they do it as the only reason why Avatar made so much money is because it was done in 3D. If you knocked out the 3D concept of Avatar, it'd be interesting to see how much it would have actually made, because you're tripling your BO purely because you've got these screens that are costing you $22 per ticket rather than $14, because it's in 3D. It'd be interesting to see if you actually took out the 3D pricing.
Look at the attendance instead of the box office.
Yeah, absolutely. To see how it would have went against maybe Titanic. It's it's purely about money at the moment, and a spectacle that actually can give you a headache, which is interesting. You're paying more money for a headache. you know, I think it's here to stay. We're going to have to get used to it. I'd like to see the problem with it is that the 3D cinemas are all owned by you know, Hollywood basically. You know, the big multiplexes and that. So, you know, what I'd love to see, because there's these smaller systems coming out, like a Panasonic system, is maybe a documentary or 5 made in 3D, but you'll never be able to get access to them, you know, through the ABC unless everybody owns a 3D TV. And it's kind of a waste of money, a waste of time, because of, you know, through television and that at the moment. And, you know, the multiplexes aren't going to put on, you know, Davo and Sarah's Great Picnic Day documentary, you know, that kind of stuff. They're not going to put that stuff on. There is an interesting, you know, it'd be interesting for someone like the Adelaide Film Festival to commission a documentary in 3D. That would be interesting to see, and you know, for it to be, you know, like a, you know, a real life, you know, film like that, and to be able to watch a documentary in 3D. I think that'd be an interesting new world, rather than just that sort of popcorn spectacle that we see at the moment of cinema. But I you know, and that was part of the reason of doing Stranded in 3D, was to not only to put my toe in the water, but to use the basis of the concept of, you know, new technology.